said you work with others to determine what polling you want to do. Talk to us a little bit about the science of polling, going from landlines to cell phones to even internet-based polls. Let's talk about maybe the election, obviously, that we just saw, and some folks not predicting, obviously, that Trump is going to be president. How quickly is the field changing, John? And what are the best practices?
Well, I don't know if it's changing, obviously, quickly enough. When you just look at kind of our poll, it wasn't unheard of now, 15, 17 years ago to talk to young people over the landline telephone.
Yep.
Most people back in 2000 had landline telephones on college campuses. We then moved from landline to landline and mobile. We then moved to some online polling, and now we use a very, very rigorous, what we call an address-based sampling methodology. Basically, what we want to ensure is that everyone has an opportunity to participate rather than people who just choose to opt in. So that's the way in which we conduct all of the polling here associated at the Institute of Politics. I will say that pollsters, I kind of think of it as one of the most dangerous jobs, white-collar jobs, in America. Because when you really look at the big picture, I think, of the last election, most pollsters actually got the national election just right.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they had Hillary Clinton up by a couple of points, and as we know, she won the popular vote by a couple of points. It was actually a better reflection than it was even 4 years ago. Not making excuses, though, for those kind of Rust Belt states where clearly kind of polling was off. Not just from the media pollsters, the academic pollsters, but obviously the campaign pollsters as well. And that certainly kind of requires a review of the methodologies. And I think that polling in the future is going to be kind of a methodology that integrates data from a variety of different kinds of places. For example, for me to do my job properly, I need to ask you what you think, whether that's on the telephone, online or in person. But I also need to kind of understand what you're posting and what you're talking about with friends and family members, and et cetera, through qualitative or through secondary research as well. And I think that kind of integration of those kinds of data sets is really kind of where we need to be in the future. I will say also that the French elections last week, the polling was incredibly difficult with the terror incident.
Mm-hmm.
Just, what it was the week of the election.
Yes.
Plus with multiple candidates. That polling though was right on. So polling has its challenges for sure, but I think the state of the industry is better today than it was even 10 years ago.
And one of the things you raised, John, is something that we've discussed with other folks here. I'd spoken with Jennifer Duffy at the Cook Report after there was a national poll about the governor's popularity that she had taken issue with. It was strictly online. We talked a little bit about that, but she raised the point again about national polling sort of doing well, but is there an issue at the local level? Is it cost prohibitive? Do you think folks oftentimes might not understand just how much it takes to get a good, credible poll?
I think that's fair, especially from the media. I mean, the media clearly has less funds and less resources to invest, but it is more expensive. It takes longer. It's very difficult to do a good poll within 2 or 3 days. Because you want to make sure that everyone has a chance to participate. And sometimes with people moving so much, you want to extend the period of time. In fact, our polling. We're focused on attitudinal issues, but we'll spend 14 days in the field from, in this case, from March 10th to March 24th. So more time is better.
And after you do the polling, you're the media darling right now. Do you have to build that into your schedule as to, how many media appearances you're going to do? Is there just that thirst out there for polling data?
Well, there is a lot of interest in it. And what I really kind of want to convey is not just who's winning or who's losing or what the president's approval rating is, for example, 100 days, but the underlying factors behind it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a combination of art and science. 10 or 20% is science, but you can read that in a book. I think what makes one pollster potentially provide better insights than another is the art of it. And by listening, and by trying to kind of translate the opinions of, in this case, the young electorate, or folks from around the country in a way in which media members and elected officials and other people can truly understand.
But again, as we pointed out, and we discussed at the beginning of it, do you think that media will take, again, those numbers as they will, as that spin from CNN saying that his poll, it was even worse with millennials, and then the other one saying they liked many of his policies? What do you think when you see that, when you see headlines taking particular pieces of the poll data?
Yeah, it's a challenge, obviously, because we want to tell the full story. Now,
Yep.
I appreciate the fact that our press release has 15 key findings or 10 key findings, and that's a lot. But we have a longer piece coming out today, this afternoon, actually, just I think this hour on NPR, and there'll be longer form pieces over time. So typically, I think the way in which we've operated in the past is there'll be a few headlines over the first couple of days, but hopefully folks have an opportunity to kind of sit and to tell a kind of a longer form story and narrative. And that's been an incredible opportunity for us here. We've had the opportunity with our students to brief, elected officials, parties, members of Congress, et cetera, from both sides of the aisle about this data, because it's incredibly important to understand, I think, not just how people think about politics, but the overarching faith or lack thereof of the institutions that govern us.
Yeah, so tell folks to sort of dive deep, obviously, into the results that you found. Don't just look at the headlines, see what really had come up with the results that you had found. And as I said, I know you're a busy guy, and I promised you 10 minutes here, John. What can we expect out of you in the coming weeks and months?
Well, the biggest question that we're focused on now is we've seen a significant decrease in the number of young people who are motivated to engage in public service.
Okay.
Politics is as relevant and tangible as it's been in some time, but that's not necessarily translating to having a life or career or even part of a career in public service as that being appealing. That's a disconnect that we're obviously not happy about, being from the Kennedy School of Government.
Yes.
So I'll dig deeper into that. We'll continue to conduct town meetings. I was in Ohio State a week ago, and we'll continue to do that over the course of the summer. And we'll start again with our next survey, with our 34th survey this coming fall.
And maybe let us know next time you're here in Rhode Island, and we'll actually get you here in studio. I would certainly appreciate that, John.
Would love to.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time, taking the time today. This is the new poll released about millennials' opinions of the Trump administration out of the Institute of Politics at Harvard University under Director of Polling, John DellaVolpe. John, I appreciate your Skyping in today. I'm going to take a look away from the camera to see you on the computer screen here. We'll talk soon.